All right, guys, and welcome back to our next episode of the Making the Cut podcast. I'm your host, Jacob from Made the Cut, along with my co-host, Peyton from Big League Analysis over on TikTok. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I've consumed an unreal amount of baseball the last few days.
Oh, dude,
Like
these early days, dude, it's been amazing. There's been some great storylines as well, like with the domination of the Dodgers and a few of these other teams that have managed to sweep their respective series. Hey, your Yankees,
dude,
they've been doing pretty
dude,
good.
I watched every pitch of those games, and here's the thing. For me, I have two opinions on it. One, oh my God, this is the greatest team ever. Two, the way they're winning games is very unsustainable.
Hmm.
So I'm not this the series didn't move me as much. I feel like it moved other Yankee fans because at the same time it's like we can't be winning all these games by relying on errors or these
Well,
blue
you know
hits
what?
or late game comebacks,
Dude, before you
so
get too far into it, let's just jump into the first making
okay,
the cut question
perfect,
because our first segment, of course, then
perfect.
does this take make the cut? I have literally that question, which is are the Yankees, does this take make the cut? The Yankees are for real in 2024. They're a playoff caliber team.
So yes, okay. I think I think the Yankees do make the playoffs, especially with the three wildcard teams now. They definitely have a slot in there. I don't think they win the AL East because we talked
Hmm.
about the O's. I think the O's
Yeah.
still win the division. However, when it comes to them being a legit contender, I feel it would be an overreaction to say that off of this series because while it was an incredible series and their late game comebacks and heroics were awesome and Juan Soto looks as good as he's ever looked like and
Hmm.
they're able to sweep the Astros with Judge not playing good. Like
Yeah.
all those things are awesome, but at the same time, it's okay. You won a lot of pivotal runs were scored on errors. A lot of a lot of runs were get across on some, some bloops, some things going your way. Late game, like all of those close games, it's not really a sustainable way to win. Like if you play those games over, if you play that series over and over again, the Yankees majority of the time don't win all four games,
Right.
right? So
Yes.
sorry, I was just saying it's just so while I am 100% more excited than I was going into the season as a Yankee fan, I do want to pump the brakes on some of the overreactions.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I'll just let it happen because it's fun.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I think that that's something that I want to outline specifically. First of all, I obviously put forward the take. I agree with it. I think the Yankees are a playoff team. The thing that
Yes.
excites me about the Yankees relative to years past is the Yankees are exciting again. It used to be for like
Yes.
I'd say over the previous 4 years, 4 or 5 years, going back to around 2017, 2018, when their young guys were really coming up, it got to a place where it really felt like and I don't really know, this isn't a reflection of the players necessarily, but at least a little bit of the front office. It felt slightly phoned in. Like they were just going to run out the same guys every year. They had their issues with their roster. They're going to throw money at it when it comes to free agents that might not pan out. It didn't feel like a very electric team, right? And I think that showed up
Yes.
in playoff situations and in a lot of games, even like last year, where just it didn't feel like the heart of that team was really there. Part of it was Judge being gone, of course, but regardless, this series, yes, a lot of things obviously went the Yankees' way. A lot of things went
Yes.
against the Astros. Even that throw that Soto made in the first game. I love Juan Soto. He is not
Nah,
going to save games in the outfield. That's just not how it works.
nah,
But,
not happening.
however, seeing some of the at bats that we've seen from their young guys, specifically guys like Oswaldo Peraza, it's been
Sorry, I
Oswaldo
was what?
Cabrera.
Yeah,
Sorry,
my bad.
I get those two mixed up. But
Yeah.
seeing some and also some of their other younger guys grinding out at bats in a way that I
Yes.
didn't see personally last year, it gives me as just a general baseball fan, a sense of excitement that, oh, are we going to start getting that electricity back where it's like nobody should want to play the Yankees, right? Last year, midway through the season, it felt like everyone was just kind of stomping on them. For the first time in a
Yes.
long time, it felt like you were excited to play the Yankees because it was going to be an easy series. I want to see the Yankees get back to that place where even if they're not a front runner, right? Which again, we agree, they're not a front runner this year. They
No.
can be pesky, they can be annoying. And I think Soto's gonna have a really positive impact. Judge has been, we don't really talk about this, but Judge has low-key had a Juan Soto-esque quality to his game for a while now. He gets on base a ton relative to what people really talk about.
Exactly.
But I think that Juan Soto and almost like the youthful exuberance, along with Judge, if they can spread some of those OBP capabilities to the rest of that lineup, and they can have a few of their young guys take steps forward when it comes to their power output specifically. If Stanton can have a little bit better of a year and hopefully stay healthy this season, which is a big if. I know Brian Cashman doesn't believe it. I know I can understand if you wouldn't, but
That's yeah, yeah.
but I will say, if all of those things can come to fruition at least a little bit, then this is a team that again, no one's going to want to play. And you know what? At this point, if you're a Yankee fan, if you get to that midway point in the season and people are still feeling like that, that's got to be a win in of itself, right?
Yes, I think something I do want to point out too, and I heard them touching this in the broadcast either yesterday or the day before, and I think it's interesting because you talked about how this team kind of feels different, and I think a big part of that are three guys. I think, well, I'll say four because I think you have to throw Judge in there as he's
Mhm.
kind of that core, but Soto, Verdugo, and Stroman. These are the new Yankees in town have this new swagger about them where this it's always been a narrative. When people go
Mhm.
to the Yankees, it's how are they going to play in New York? How are they
Right.
going to embrace being a Yankee? But with these three guys, it feels like how are the Yankees going to embrace me? Like I'm going to
Right.
Soto comes in, he's like, I'm gonna be myself, turn it up to 11. That's what he's been doing.
Yeah.
Stroman, same thing. Stroman's still being Stroman. Not just because he has pinstripes on, he's not toning it down. Same thing with like with Verdugo. And I love to see that. I think that's something the Yankees were missing. And now they kind of have an edge. And I love what you said about the young guys, Austin Wells and especially Anthony Volpe. Anthony
Mhm.
Volpe has been absurd with his plate discipline and at bats. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, like when we're talking about, I think when it comes to teams, a lot of times we hone in on too much of individual production. We
Yes.
always forget that it's also a team effort. Because if Anthony Volpe, even if, let's say, I think Anthony Volpe could finish the year with an OPS plus around league average. If he's
Yes.
above that, oh my God.
Yeah.
If he's
Oh,
above, I would consider this season a massive W if he's above 90.
right. I
Because
agree.
because
What he brings on the defensive side of things up the middle is just so valuable in and of itself.
yes, because think about this, right? Because this is a comparison I made when he won the Gold Glove, and not that I don't think he has the same defensive peak as Dansby Swanson, but
Hmm. Hmm.
the reason I bring it up, even though I don't think he's as good as a defender, is Volpe won a Gold Glove award as a rookie, as a 22-year-old. Okay,
Yeah.
he had a 2020 season. OPS plus was in the 80s. If Volpe can get that relatively around league average, while the power's still there, because he's gonna get 20 plus home run swings off, he's gonna get the walks, and the defense is there, that's an amazing shortstop. Dansby Swanson didn't have an above average OPS plus season, discounting like the 2020, like shortened
Hmm.
season,
Yeah.
until like 2022.
Yeah. 100%. Sometimes,
That's 5 years. Yeah,
yeah.
Volpe's five years away from that age, or six
I
years
think
away.
we see that a lot with, I think, catchers and shorts. A lot of really very
Yes.
cerebral positions that take a long time to kind of settle into, especially with just the expectations that are put on you being in those positions. That those guys can have a tendency to develop a little bit slower than some of these other positions. First base, corner outfield, stuff like that. It's difficult. It's difficult to figure out exactly like what is expected of you and how to perform relative to those expectations in such a way as to not let it get in your head, especially when you play somewhere like New York. Last year, I went to some Angels games where the Yankees were in town, and it really did feel at that point like it was in his head a little bit. He was chasing a lot of breaking balls away, which he's
Yes.
not known to do when he's right. Right, that's his thing. He has really good plate discipline when he's on, and it was not on when we saw him, and that was something that I noted was that hey, he looks like he's pressing a little bit, but that was also something again another problem with the Yankees last year that someone like Soto, somebody like Verdugo, somebody like Stroman, they can help relieve that pressure of pressing. You don't want to press, And last year they didn't really with Judge gone and then Stanton having his issues and all that. There was, I think, the pressure got to the young guys a little bit. So hopefully this year, if they can avoid that, they can avoid falling into one of those ruts where it just starts feeling like every game is the World Series. Then they can get off a little bit, get off some hot streaks and yeah, sneak their way in. I no because the Yankee fans aren't really expecting a World Series this year. I almost feel like the Yankees are better primed to go on some kind of run like that because finally there isn't 100% all gas on that goal. And
Exactly.
yeah, that in recent years, I really do think that's taken them down, just mentally speaking. So it'll be interesting to see if they can finally transform past that this season.
So when was the last time in your memory? Because
Mhm.
I know it. I just want to see if we're on the same page. When was the last season where going into the season, the Yankees didn't clearly have a World Series or bust mindset?
I would say probably 2013, 2014, I'd say. For me, just because they already 2013 was so tough for them, and they brought in some free agents, but it didn't feel like the type of team that was really going to compete deep into the playoffs. They still had expectations, but yeah.
So to me, so my answer to that question is I feel like the last time the Yankees didn't necessarily have that World Series or bust mindset was 2017 because
Okay,
2016 they sold their stars at the deadline and then entering the year was like, okay, let's let the young guys ball. And that's when they were a game away from the World Series and they
that's
lost to the
fair.
Astros. And now I'm not saying, oh, they're going to do it again because history. No, what I'm saying is that I think this team, with the bit of the pressure off of the last 2 years, have been very full of pressure. 2022, they were the
Yeah,
best team in baseball in the first half, kind of collapsed, Judge of the home run record. Yeah, last year was so
yeah.
absolute disaster. It's so funny how we talk about the Yankees disaster season is still a winning season. Like
Yeah.
that's really funny. Because here's the thing too. Like if you really think that the because this is we talked about this with the Giants too, is that okay, the Yankees won 82 games last year. If they're any better this year, because they're definitely better this year, undeniably. Not
Yes.
Billy McKinney taking a lot of at bats. So no disrespect to Billy McKinney, but
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not a Yankees outfielder.
No.
Um, if the Yankees are anywhere near 90 wins, they have a really legit shot for the playoffs. And
Mhm.
I think 89 wins is a very realistic goal. If the
100%.
yeah,
I just want to throw out one thing here that I think we don't talk about enough when we think about expectations for teams. I think that when you think through the 2010s, one team made it seem so possible to make the playoffs every single season that I feel like it almost raised the standards for how other fan bases felt when their teams weren't doing as well. And it's the team that doesn't necessarily have the most championships to show for it, but it's the Dodgers, where it's like they
yes.
showed that it's possible to win every single season, and not just on the back of bringing in a bunch of free agents, but also cultivating a crop of rookies that you can either trade or literally come up and sign to a 10-year, $140 million deal like they just did with Will Smith. Max
Mhm.
Muncy taking other teams' leftover pieces and turning them into something great. Justin Turner's a great example of that. And I think that that's almost it's created a really difficult standard for other teams to be held up against, because that's what I was kind of thinking about, where it's like, what team that had a winning season would be as disappointing as the Yankees was last year? And I can really only think of one, and that would have been, the Dodgers. There's the Mets.
Yes,
There's the Mets and the Padres, but the Mets and the Padres are the Mets and the Padres, right? It's not
exactly.
surprising necessarily as disappointing. But the only other team that I would feel the same way about would be a team like the Dodgers. So I think that, and the Yankees are trying to build themselves a bit in that image, right? Where it's like, we don't have to get free agents anymore. We can
Yeah.
if we want to, but we have the young pieces that we can build around. And then even if you have a Jordan Alvarez slip past you every once in a while, you don't have to like look back at that with some kind of like sense of almost like massive regret, because you have all these other pieces that you managed to keep and then raise up. So yeah, I think that the Yankees will probably be more like the Dodgers going forward, especially after they've made the moves they have, even this offseason, remaining fairly pat, but bringing in those like, more targeted free agents. I'm extremely excited to see this young core of dudes like grow together, and hopefully, maybe Soto stays. That would be really interesting, I think, because they have that money now to potentially keep him. But yeah, this
Yeah,
Yankee team is
honestly,
gonna be a problem.
maybe I'm just being biased, but I don't I feel like it's unlikely that the Yankees don't re-sign him.
Right, because they've missed out on so many
I
high
yeah,
marquee free agents now that it's almost like
yeah.
there's all this money on the books. Like,
They have
who are you
him
going to throw it
here.
at? Yeah,
I'm saying you have him here already. If they don't, especially because listen, the Dodgers have think of the contracts all the Dodgers have in the books right now. They have Freddie, Mookie, Yamamoto, and Otani. The Yankees are richer than the Dodgers. Like
yeah,
they can afford Judge and Soto.
oh, exactly,
I
hundred
don't think
percent.
unless Soto really tries some because
Some
he's a
Boris
Boris
stuff.
client.
Yep, yep.
Like, unless some crazy Boris stuff happens, it would be a monumental failure if they don't re-sign Soto.
100%. All right, man. You want to move on to your next take? Does that take make the cut?
Yes, and I'm going to stay in the AL East.
Okay.
Um, and the player who's kind of impressed me the most, not that shockingly, because like I think the best player in baseball in these first 5 games so far to me is Mookie Betts, but
Yeah.
that's fine. But the player who's impressed me the most is Gunnar Henderson. I feel
Mm.
like what he's been able to do just with the he has 2 chases and 13 plate appearances. He's hitting his average exit velo so far was 100. He almost hit for the cycle the other day. Bobby Witt also almost hit for the cycle, but
In
Gunnar
the third
Henderson
inning.
almost hit for
Yeah.
the third inning. Gunnar Henderson almost hit for the cycle the other day. He's looking absurd.
Yes.
Um, so here's my question. Gunnar Henderson, top 5 MVP finish in 2024. Does that make the cut?
So it reminds me of like other MVP questions where it's like, first of all, get the injury stuff out of the way. We'll pretend that no one's going to get injured. Aside from that, who does he have to compete against, right? So
Yeah.
Judge is probably not in the conversation, at least in my opinion. I don't know if I can see him in the conversation for 2024 just because he has looked bad, and it's going to be a while until he's going to be fully recovered from what he's dealing with now with the core stuff. I know he's got the
Yeah.
turf toe thing. That's going to be a bit of a thing. I really do hope he's contending for it, but as of right now, we could say that he's probably going to be top 5, but he can potentially be pushed out of there.
Mhm.
Soto, I see Soto as a top 5.
I think he wins it, but
Yeah, he's got a pretty good chance. And the analytics there is kind of hard with the right field he plays. But hey, maybe that'll be a little better this year. But aside from that, like, who do you got, right? Who do you got in that top 5? Hopefully, Trout again. But I think he could sneak his way in there. I really do. And I think that he's going to do it more for a new age audience because I don't see him being a 150 OPS plus WRC plus hitter this year. I don't see it. Over the full course of the season, I think he's probably going to sit more comfortably in that 120 to 130 range. But here's the thing. He reminds me of almost like a Nico Horner slash like Dansby Swanson build, but with offense off the charts. Like he was really good defensively last year at shortstop. I don't know if
yes.
he's going to stay there because they got so another guy in the minor leagues who potentially could come up. I don't know if they're going to where he's going to slot around to, but regardless, wherever he plays amazing defense. So his cumulative value at the end of the year is going to be one of the best in the league. It already was last year as a rookie.
He has
So
6.2 WAR as a rookie, by the way.
6.2 WAR as a rookie. And
Baseball
again,
reference.
his hitting peripherals weren't the best, right? Like I said, his OPS plus wasn't insane. He didn't have like a ton of home runs or anything like that. But I think he's one of those guys that's kind of almost like you're gonna look at him at the end of the year and he's gonna have a sneaky total of like 7.5 to 8 WAR, and you're gonna be like, how exactly did this come about without like really without making those earth shattering like headlines and stuff. But at the end of the day, I think that take does make the cut. And I do think it's going to come down to largely the competition, the strength of competition he's facing. And then also the fact that voters are becoming more and more new age minded. Stats like WAR do matter more than they used to. And he's going to be on a team that's going to make the playoffs, which is going to be another huge factor, of course.
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? It's for me, I feel like either him or Adley. It's to me, it's like who is going to really take control of the team. I know Adley is the heart soul captain of that team, even though he's not officially the captain. He is, but I'm talking about like production wise. It's one of those two is really going to take some crazy leap, and become that guy. I just feel like the only thing that holds me back from saying that about Gunnar is I'm a bit concerned about his platoon splits.
Yeah.
He kind of got carved by lefties last year.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not the case, if he can just be, average against lefties and just continue to mash righties, like he could put up a crazy offensive season. But if he doesn't improve as much, he's going to be, oh no, like a 120 OPS plus.
Exactly.
Oh no. But the thing is, he had a 125 OPS plus last year, and he was pretty bad until June.
Exactly. Oh, he had a hell of a hot streak. That kind of brings me to another, like, because you make a great point where it's like he could potentially have some MVP votes signed off. By the way, last year he finished 8th in MVP voting, so it wouldn't be that much more growth anyway. But
that's what yeah.
But let me throw this at you as kind of like a follow-up question to that. Do you think that someone like Adley Rushman has the potential to have a Posey-like season? Because that's what I really do feel like that's what it's going to take.
I
Still
love
in
this conversation
era, because there's been some great seasons beyond that. Even like dude, I mean, Yadier Molina, when I was, putting together that script the other day,
Yes.
when I was looking at that, it's like his 2012, 2013, even 2011 production was insane. But it's like, it doesn't stand out in the same way somebody like a Ronald Acuna would, even if, let's say, they had relatively similar WAR numbers. So do you think Adley has a 2012 Posey in him
So
at the plate at least?
I love this conversation because I've always maintained that I feel like at least once in his career, Adley's going to have a perfect storm type season.
Mm.
Although I do not think he reaches the same offensive peak as Posey, because I think Posey's offensive peak was a 170 OPS plus and like
Yeah.
330 average or something nuts. Like I don't think he has that in the tank because I just don't see Adley becoming that type of hitter, like batting average wise and stuff. However, I think he could have like a 95% version of that, maybe instead of like a 10 more like Posey had, like an 8, and kind of just
Yeah.
I think it's definitely possible. He's kind of the perfect baseball player in a way. Like he kind of has wheels, he has good eyes, he's a switch hitter, great catcher behind the plate, he really knows how to control that team. Like Adley Rutschman, like 10 years from now, especially with how this Orioles team could have a really crazy legacy.
Well, yeah, this is kind of like my take on this whole thing, which is that the only reason I might be held back from thinking he could ever reach the same level someone like Posey did is just his age. He's 26 now, right?
Yeah.
By the time Posey was 26, he'd already won an MVP. He'd already posted 2 separate seasons with an over 130 OPS plus. He had made his debut when he was just 22 years old. Like he really had almost like a savant appeal to him as a catcher. Like you never see a catcher that successful that young. But with Adley, he doesn't have the same, it doesn't seem to be anyway to me, the same level of that pure hitting ability that Posey did, where it's like Posey could go out there and throw up nearly a 3.45 every season during his peak. Rutschman doesn't
Yeah.
seem to have as quite as much power as Posey did. I mean, he threw up a 550 slugging percentage one season. Like
That's
that's
kind of
it's
crazy.
kind of crazy. And Rutschman's still kind of struggling a little bit versus lefties. The thing is, and I think that this is kind of a bit of an issue with the conversation around Adley, is that everyone's always talking about what his potential is. Oh, he has the potential to be the next Mauer. He has the potential to be the next Posey. All these things. If he is the current version of himself that he is right now for the next 8 years, we could be looking at a Hall of Fame career. Like he doesn't need to be the
Yeah.
next Posey or the next Mauer in order to be like a truly amazing player. However, I just don't see who he is as a catcher and as a baseball player as a real forefronter or as a real forthcomer for the MVP award, especially in 2024 when like offense is getting to a place where we haven't seen it be this consistently good from as young a guys as we currently are seeing it in a long time.
Yeah, I like that. I agree.
All right, we're going to move on to our
Perfect.
next segment now. We're basically going to be doing like quiz questions. We're going to give each other quiz questions. You're going to get 3 strikes to answer them, at least for mine that I'm putting forward. I'm very curious if you know this one because this it's a little niche and you have to match multiple pieces of data, but the names probably are going to come to you fairly easy. So there have been 3 players since 1980 to post at least 10 B WAR in a season and then not win an MVP. Can you name those?
Okay.
Can you name those 3 players and then the year that they did it? You get 3
Okay.
strikes.
So okay. Let me get all the information. So we're talking about players with a 10 plus B WAR since 1980,
Yeah.
but failed to win the MVP.
Yes.
Mike
Only
Trout.
3.
Mike
Yes.
Trout is one of them in 2012.
Yep.
Okay,
That is
that's
correct.
because Triple Crown.
Got to get that
Uh,
out of the way. Yep.
Gotta get that right. I knew that one, but um, so Mike Trout Triple Crown 2012. Oh my, yeah. So I've just for context, I'm not looking away. So I have the Rays game on in the background, and
Mhm.
White Langford almost hit a home run. That
Gonna see
distracted me.
that a
Yeah,
lot this year.
that distracted me.
I'll give
So
you some hints. Okay, I'll throw up a couple hints here, which
okay,
is first of all, they happened very close in proximity, and second of all, they happened at a time where it was possible to not win an MVP because certain other things were happening in the league that made it kind of hard to compete for an MVP, even when you posted a 10 B WAR in a season.
okay. Wait, I know what it is. Okay, so the other one is Sammy Sosa,
That's one of them. Yes.
and that's 2001.
Yes, yes, yes. All right, so you got zero
Yes,
strikes so
yes.
far, so you can throw some stuff
Yes, yeah,
out there.
the other one was yeah. That's I'll throw that out there. Sammy Sosa is so funny because he won the MVP when he had the when he lost the home run chase to McGuire. He won the MVP, but then he had maybe his best season in '01, and then obviously he got
Yeah,
outshined
he
by
wasn't gonna quite.
someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, that one, and then the other one. Did he have a 10? The other one is Ken Griffey Jr.
No, he did not. He did
Get
not
close.
lose MVP in the season that he had his best wars. I'm not actually sure if he reached quite 10, but he won back to back during his best two seasons. So that I'm glad that worked out for him.
Okay.
It's not
Um,
necessarily a guy you'd think about at this point in history because he had his most notable seasons later on, but it let's just put it this way. At the position he was currently playing at the time, what he was doing had never been done, and honestly has never been done since.
at the position he's playing, at the position he was playing at the time,
Yes.
and it's never been done since. You so I have like two really weird names in my head,
Okay.
but I
It's
don't
definitely not a
think
weird name. It's
no,
so
it's a Hall of
obvious.
Famer.
Yeah. Well, well. There's another
Oh,
hit.
oh shoot. Is it Barry?
It is not Barry. No, he won MVP every season that he
Yeah,
uh
I was gonna say because
yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know if Barry got like screwed one of those years. Someone who hadn't done it since.
One more. Yeah, one more.
I know I do. I don't think McGuire got to 10
He
when
did
he
not.
hit 60 when he hit 70 because he was the first baseman.
And he was a terrible fielding first baseman. Funny
Yeah,
enough,
yeah.
when you look at stats like cumulatively like WAR, it feels like at first base you can't really help it that much, but you can hurt it. If you're bad enough, you can take that puppy down by a solid WAR and a half.
Um, okay, I have a pick.
Okay.
Over 10 WAR, and you said you gave me the hint is maybe probably not in the Hall of Fame. So I'm gonna go Clemens.
That was a good guess. It is not correct. It was Alex Rodriguez in 2000.
I'm actually very angry because that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, Hall of Famer. I mean, by the standards that we would consider a player to be a Hall of Famer, he's a Hall of Famer. And then if you cut his career in half, he's a Hall of Famer too. But it's also like there's the roids and the unlikability and all that stuff in there. But yeah, 2000, so right next to Sosa's season. Yeah, it really gives perspective as to how good and how kind of snubbed Trout got. That it's like his rookie season was in the same conversation as two guys who were obviously Juiced's best seasons.
Can I say something?
Nuts. What?
I technically was right with Clemens.
Oh, did he? Oh, he had a 10 WAR on the pitching side.
Yes.
I should have
But you
articulated them as
should
position players.
yes, yes. So yeah, I was gonna say I'm like I feel like Clemens surpassed that, but yeah, I think
That's
that's
crazy. He had a 10
no,
WAR season.
because I was gonna say because I think Pedro also passed it, but yeah, so position players it would be A-Rod.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. I mean, what he managed to do at the old age he did it, it's almost like he had help, you know? It's almost like he ate a very balanced breakfast. Him, Barry, Alex, obviously, you know.
Actually, okay. I'm gonna throw this at you. So
Okay.
in 1997, Clemens was 34 and he played for the Blue Jays. Do you know what his WAR was that season?
What, dude? 11.8.
11.9.
What? I just threw out the craziest total I could possibly think. Dude,
That's
for a pitcher to
absurd.
get over 7 WAR is crazy. Since 1960 is crazy, right? Over 8,
Yeah.
over 9, that's I get MVP conversation at that point. 11 is just
11 is
bonkers.
absurd. 11's absurd.
Bonkers.
Can you name the guy with the most Gold Gloves at each position?
At each position. Okay.
So okay. So do you want to go in order or do you just want to shout them
I
out?
was thinking going like, yeah, I was thinking of going in order, kind of from catcher around the diamond. I'm start with go like obviously catcher, infielders, outfielders. Okay, so catcher is gonna be Pudge.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Catcher is Pudge.
yes.
Keith Hernandez at first base. Did he have the most?
Yes, 11.
11.
11 at
Dude,
first.
dude honestly has a sneaky Hall of Fame case. I don't think he's in there, but he is a sneaky Hall of Fame case if he's not. Second base is a little.
It's a kind of a it's not a weird one. I was gonna say it's a weird one, but it's kind of a name that's kind of gets like forgotten in baseball history.
Yeah.
He has 10
Ah,
though.
he has 10. Yeah. I'm
If
gonna
I was
skip
you,
over him. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back to this one.
if I was you, I'd
Yeah.
get third base out of the way if I was you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get two of them out of the way. So Ozzie Smith at shortstop,
Yes.
Brooks Robinson at third base.
Yes.
Easy peasy.
16. Wait, just for a second.
16 is crazy.
16 is so absurd when you think about it, especially now. Because
You know
imagine
what's
a guy
funny?
with an athletic peak 16 years long to win a
I
gold
would
glove.
make an argument, and this may be controversial, but I would make an argument that Gold Glove voting was actually better in the 70s and 80s, arguably, than it is now, just because there weren't the same level of numbers. So it really was based on the eye test. So their deficiencies weren't exposed like they are now, where it's like when Sal Perez kept getting Gold Gloves, it really was like, okay, you're looking at no advanced numbers. Whereas back then it's like, okay, so just by the eye test, it's so obvious Ozzie Smith is like the best shortstop, right? It's so obvious Brooks
Mhm.
Robinson's the best shortstop. And even if there might have been numbers back then that like if you could teleport, that information to them, maybe it would look worse. But it felt like much more of a, even the way you presented it right there, he won 16, right? Like it still has more weight. Like now, if you mention a guy has 5 Gold Gloves, it doesn't necessarily mean all that much, especially with someone like Juan Soto getting nominated a couple
Do
years
you remember
ago.
when Palmeiro won it when he played like 20 games or something?
Yeah. The 90s got interesting because it
Weird.
almost felt like they didn't have enough awards to hand out to all the steroid guys. They started just kind of giving them other things too.
Crazy.
Um, but yeah,
Okay,
okay.
so you're
So
missing just outfield overall. It's not
yeah,
separated. Outfield overall, second base, and pitcher. Even though I think pitcher is actually the easiest one because
yeah.
talking.
Maddox,
Yeah,
Maddox is that
18, by the
pitches.
way. We talked about
18,
16, 18. That's on the mound, but still.
dude.
Maddox is pit for me, I have a weird obsession with pitching fielding. I love it for some
Jim
reason.
Cat, Jim
Yes, he has
Cat,
16.
underrated, dude. Yeah,
I have a
16
weird
would have been
upset.
the best ever if it wasn't for Maddox and what he was able to do.
So in 2022, Ranger Suarez, he threw 150 innings, so he didn't qualify for a Gold Glove, but he had 9 defensive runs saved on the mound.
That's
Isn't
nuts.
that
I saw that. I
ridiculous?
saw that video that you posted too. It's like he's so blasé about it too. Where
Yeah,
it's
he
like
literally just like
you wouldn't suspect that.
it's the best. It's literally it's so good.
Oh, dude,
So
seriously.
so now you're missing second base and outfield.
In,
Outfield's technically a tie between two dudes.
okay, in center field. Yeah, right. So is it Mays in center?
Well, no, it's just outfield overall, but Mays
Oh,
is
okay. Oh, so it's just so it could be right fielders, left fielders, doesn't matter.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Mays is yeah.
He had 10, right?
Mays had 12.
He had
Griffey
12. That's
Griffey had
crazy.
Griffey had 10. Griffey had
Yeah.
10.
So then did Andrew Jones get there? Did he actually get there?
10.
He had
10
10.
because once he like
And
became
that's
once he
not
went to
top
the
up there, right?
Dodgers. What? Jones 10
Yeah,
is tied for second.
tied for second. Okay. So there's two more that had 12.
No, there's one more who had 12.
One more had 12 in the outfield. Ichiro had 9 or 10, right? So he's not there
Yeah, he had
either.
10.
Dude, who else? Who am I forgetting right now? Is it an obvious one?
It's a Hall of Famer, yeah. It's kind of an obvious one. Just think of instead of like okay, so like Mays is known for his glove. Think of the
Yeah.
opposite.
No one more for the bat?
No, like his arm.
Oh, he's known for his arm. Dave Winfield?
No, but that's you're getting warmer.
What, dude, who am I missing, dude? Ah, this sucks.
Second, do you want to get a crack at second base?
Yeah, okay. It's not Pedroia. There's no way. He didn't play long enough, sadly.
No, but he is 4. I'll give him the respect.
Yeah, give him the respect.
The 2 players left are both Puerto Rican. I think that should help you in right.
Oh, Roberto.
Sorry, now
Roberto.
Yeah,
Dude.
yeah. But
Clemente.
and then second base is his brother played in the big leagues as well. And family.
What?
His family was in
Is
the
it
big leagues
Sandy
a lot.
or is it Roberto Alomar?
Yes.
It's Roberto Alomar? I had no
Yeah.
idea. I knew he was a great fielder, but I didn't
Dog.
know he had the absolute most Gold Gloves for a second baseman. That's low key. Like that's a good one. I'd love to. I'm gonna throw that at people that I know that are like love baseball trivia. That's a great one. His brother Sandy Alomar was a hell of a catcher too. Played in the same team for a while.
Kat, thought that you too. So the
Good.
only three players, this isn't another question. That's what I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Three guys have won the Gold Glove at multiple positions. It's DJ LeMahieu, who won it at second base and utility. So I guess that counts.
Yeah.
Placido Polanco, dog, second base and third
Yes.
base, and Darren Erstad, outfield and first base.
Did you, I I love those kind of like facts, right? Because it's like somebody like Darren Erstad. But by the way, outfield and first base are two funny ones to win it, right? Because I know he wasn't a center fielder,
Yeah,
right? Erstad wasn't a center fielder, so it's like he kind of
true.
won it at like the two positions that are the easiest to. But he's the only guy to ever do it specifically at those two positions. That's great, man. That's great. The utility infielder has been discriminated against for a long time. I'm all for adding the utility Gold Glove because like Javier Baez in 2017 deserved a Gold Glove or
In
2016
some way, yeah,
deserved some form of it. He was like
exactly.
every position he played for the Cubs where he would like spend time there, he deserved to win the Gold Glove for that position specifically. Because he was just so good at moving around. Yeah, so I'm all for that. I love
Can
that. Good.
Before we exit the next one, can I point out two travesties?
Two travesties. Hit me with them.
Travesty number one is that Andrelton Simmons only has 4 Gold Gloves, which is less than
Ah,
Jeter, less than Jeter. And two, two, the second travesty, which is in a very same elk, is that Kevin Kiermaier only has 4 Gold Gloves.
that's basically on a rate basis, probably the best two defenders. Okay, I'll say in the last 25 years, right? Because it's hard to go back before that. But
Yes,
on a rate basis, the best two defenders in baseball
dude,
history, at least if we're considering metrics from the
dude,
last 25 years.
Kevin Kiermaier is so ridiculous, and
He really
I feel like
is.
yeah, like because like I with all the access to tape we have now, going on his Savant page and going to his fielding section and go through his catch probability, you can just click on them. It's so absurd. Because for me, what gets me more isn't really the diving plays. It's the plays that Kevin Kiermaier just flies to, and it's just like there.
Well, and you know what's also crazy is that when you look at like kind of random productive seasons, did you know in 2015 he had a 7 WAR?
Yes,
He had posted a 7 WAR. Unfortunately, what's kind of funny is the early part of his career, I think he was seen as having a little bit more potential to be a superstar, but he got injured a decent amount. His 162 game average for WAR is 5.5 for his career.
yes,
5.5. That's so insane.
because he is an absurd fielder. Like I was like, and the thing is too, like he's a career average hitter
He's
according
a
to Pro
career
Football Plus.
average. Exactly.
So like I mean, and he is really interesting as a player because I talked about how because so in Drelton Simmons, obviously, like you made a video on it. He had the 40 DRS season. Kiermaier had a 39 in 2015 or 38.
He's
And
the
if you watch the
best.
clips,
Yeah.
it's so crazy. I look at I was shocked because I made the case. I said that I think Kevin Kiermaier is the best defensive outfielder ever. I
Yes.
do think that because like right now, at the moment, he's second in D-WAR all time for the outfield, trailing Andrew Jones by like 3, I think, or 4. And he's the all-time leader in DRS. And
And when people kind of get mad at assertions like that,
yes,
what you have to say is that, listen, this isn't to take away from somebody like, let's say,
no,
Willie Mays or an Andrew Jones, where it's like, it's the progression of athletics forward, right? Where it's
yes,
like, Kiermaier has a lot of resources those guys didn't have, obviously. Like, we don't, that's why we're not trying to compare if Kiermaier was better than Mays. To be honest, the vast majority of players now are probably better than Mays because it's like that was the time period. It was like
exactly.
the training was different. Everything was different back then. We're talking about dominance relative to their peers. He is unbelievably dominant relative to his peers in a way that no other player ever has been.
Exactly. I think
Crazy.
like that's kind of what I'm saying because obviously, like you said, you can't really compare him to Mays, but when it comes to him versus everyone else, the stuff that he's able to do is just so
He has
ridiculous.
165 DRS. We're just going to go by that
Yes.
metric in 1,000 games. He has averaged 24 DRS per season.
Yeah.
Averaged.
And
That's
the thing is
most
too,
players would be the best of their career.
and the thing is too, think about this, think about this. So last year in 2023, he had a 2.2 D-WAR and center field, which is objectively a very hard defensive position. Probably the
Yes.
third hardest defensive position, we'd say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, that and shortstop, you can kind of go back and forth. And part of
Okay.
it also has to do with like the dimensions of your field. But I'd say third is probably like that's pretty safe.
He had 18 defensive runs saved last year, 2.2 D WAR. How old was he? 34 years old. The guy we're also talking about, Andrelton Simmons, 34 years old right now, retired. Declined defensively at age 30. I'm like this is we're not talking about like and I'm not taking anything away from Simmons. I think
Yeah.
he had we talked you made a video about it. I edited it. We agree. He's the greatest peak ever, but defensively. But Kevin Kiermaier is a generational talent, weirdly, because
Yes.
he is 34 years old and he is still arguably the best center fielder in Major League Baseball with the glove. And he's still
Yeah.
posting 2.2 D WARs and 18 defensive runs saved at 34 years old. That is unreal.
Absolutely unreal. And it really gives him an air of value that reminds me a little bit of what we were talking about earlier with Gunnar Henderson, where it's like he is going to have an insane season, but you're not going to necessarily, no numbers are going to jump off the page at you. And Kiermaier is that, but even more so, just because defensive metrics don't jump off the page at you in quite the same way. But yeah, last year, a 4 WAR in 129 games. Like that's insane production from a guy who's in his mid 30s at this point, playing the hardest position on the field. I'm sorry, the hardest position of the outfield, third hardest on the field overall.
Yeah, okay. So another thing I want to throw at you. So age 34, because to me that's ridiculous because we assume age 34 with decline in the field. Because
Oh, 100%.
right. So I would say two of the best defensive out center fielders that people consider of the last however many years are Ken Griffey Jr.
Yes.
and Andrew Jones, right?
Yeah. Hands down.
Right. So at age 34, Andrew Jones had 0 defensive run saved. So it's fine. Literally like 34 years old,
Yeah.
0. Beautiful. At age 34, Griffey had a negative 13.
Yeah.
Kiermaier is still
It's so hard. It's so hard to maintain
and
that level of
and
production.
that's not even disrespectful to those guys. I'm not even trying to be disrespectful to those guys. It's just Kiermaier, what he does in the outfield is truly generational. And I don't think we talk about it enough.
Dude,
4 Gold Gloves
I
only.
love the Kevin Kiermaier love fest. I want to throw one last thing. I want to throw one last thing out there. Okay. Do you know what round Kevin Kiermaier was drafted in? Take a pot
Like,
shot. Throw anything out there that you want.
it's like 20th.
Oh, yeah. 31st round from college. So it's like this was it, man. And he literally just gutted his and you
Oh my
watch him
God.
play. He gutted
Parkland
his way to the
College.
big leagues. Yeah. Just oh man. And that this work
Kevin
ethic shows
Kiermaier.
off on the field too. I mean, if in fact you could also make an argument low key that it's like that's actually hurt him in some cases. I remember a diving catch he made versus I believe it was the Tigers actually back when I was more into them, where he made a dive and like broke his hand. And it was like, oh man, it wasn't really a really relevant play at the time. In relation to like overall the game. And I remember just being torn up about it because it was like another season he was going to have a 7+ WAR and it just kind of derailed it a little bit. But regardless, Kevin Kiermaier love fest over. Anyway, do you want to move on to
Please.
our do you want to move on to our final segment here, which was us talking about the best or the coolest one-hit wonders in recent baseball history, at least for me. It's recent baseball history.
Same, yeah.
100%, dude. All right, you want to get started? You want to throw yours out there first?
Are you familiar with a player named Zach Cozart?
Oh, yes. Zach Cozart, MVP shortstop contender for the 2015 Reds, right? 2016?
Dude, it was 2017, but still.
2017.
Listen, Zach Cozart, like I feel like I've never been burned by a player more in my life than Zach Cozart. So
Oh.
in his career, because I remember like 2017 MLB. I'll take you back to like a 15-year-old Peyton. That's when I really started getting into baseball, like analytics and stats, and I was really interested in stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this Zach Cozart guy posted a 5.2 WAR in 122 games with a 140 OPS plus. This guy's unreal. All-star. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So no, that was the only
Yes.
in his career, he had up to that point, Cozart had played in he played in 6 seasons, right?
Yeah.
He had one season where he had one season with an above average OPS plus, and it was a season where he played 53 games. He weirdly goes out there in 2017 and posts 297 average, 385 OBP, 548 slug with a 140 OPS plus, 5.2 WAR, all-star team, right? Goes into the offseason. And what does he do? Sign with the Angels, because of course that's what you
That's what you
do.
do.
That's what you do. And then he went on with the LA Angels and posted a abysmal 52 OPS plus over the course of a little bit over 100 games.
Oh my God, dude. Okay, so let me throw this at you. Okay, let me throw this at you. We're talking about Zach Kozart and that because I oddly had the page like very easily to access. I love doing that thing where you kind of jump between baseball reference pages, but either way. So he posted 15.7 WAR with the Reds over the course of his time there, right? 7 years.
Yeah.
That we'll say he charged them 12.2 million. That's a pretty decent going rate, right? I mean, like basically you're getting over a WAR per $1 million paid. That's a good deal for them, right? Even considering some of the other seasons where he wasn't as good offensively, he was still a pretty good defensive shortstop. Do you know what he contributed to the Angels in his time there relative to how much he cost? He gave them negative 1.1 WAR for $25 million.
Yeah, it's
He
crazy.
cost them over doubly as much as the Reds for negative production.
Yeah, no, that's just absurd. That's just
But you're
absurd.
right. It's the only season in his career, but it's like I remember when that happened too. It reminds me of another teammate that we could have
140.
talked about where it was like Devin Mesoraco around that same time, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like these guys are going to be like great, like big time stars up the middle now, and catcher, and it's like, it's just nothing happened after that.
Because the thing is too, like for me, it would be one thing if it was like 125 OPS plus, like,
Yeah,
with like a 4 WAR, like 5.2 WAR, and I think his Fangraphs may have been higher. I don't have it up. With a 140 OPS plus, like those are elite numbers. And then for him literally to do that once and then just pack it in, retire 2 years later, not retire because he didn't, because he tried to get never making it back to the big leagues 2 years
yeah.
later. That's just an insane fall off.
Dude, okay, and I want to shout out my man Devin Mesoraco. I just kind of mentioned him real briefly here for his near 900 OPS in 2014 and 114 games with 25 bombs and a 147 OPS plus 21. He finished in MVP voting that season. He proceeded to never post a hitting season even at league average and hit for the rest of his career a grand total of 17 home runs.
That's so fascinating to me because like baseball's a sport like that because it's
Yeah,
just so weird.
yeah.
Like how a dude can just do that. I wonder what that's like mentally just for that
Right,
player. Be
right.
like,
Do you feel like
be
an
like,
imposter of yourself, or is it almost like this is when I finally achieved my potential and now I'm not there anymore?
no, like I can just imagine. Yeah, I can imagine a guy who's like self-aware of his talents, and all of a sudden he's just like just can't stop hitting for a whole year. Like
Oh
I
my
think it's what
God.
happened with Zach Kozart. Like you're just like,
Yeah. Like this isn't me. I've never hit like
what's
this.
what's going on? Like stop pitching to me.
Seriously. All right. Well, hey, I'm gonna throw another name at you, and this one probably haven't thought about in a while because unfortunately he fell out of the limelight almost as fast as he entered it, which was Mike Soroka. One of the Braves'
Ooh,
big pitching prospects, he came up and immediately made a great first impression. His rookie season, a 2.68 ERA at the height of the juice ball era in 2019, with a 111 whip,
yeah.
league leading 0.7 home runs per nine, a way bigger deal even then than it would be now. A top six Cy Young finish, and he finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting. On top of all that, his ERA plus was 171. You know what Garrett Cole's ERA plus was last year?
155?
165. Pretty close.
Okay, okay.
But
Close.
still, 6 points off. Zach Wheeler has never had that one, has never had one that high, and neither has Yu Darvish or Luis Castillo in their careers. He
Mm.
literally like put up when you look at the rankings all time in baseball reference, it's literally a top 300 season in baseball history among all pitchers. But then right after that, he had a ton of arm problems and
Yes.
literally like it cratered his career to the point where his mechanics basically fully changed. And since then, he's only thrown 50 innings over the next 4 years.
Mhm.
And last year had a 640 ERA. with the Braves, and now he's on the White Sox. Like, I didn't even know he'd made his way to the South Side.
Yeah, no, he pitched for them like 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday.
Oh man, it's so rough to see that. He really had, I thought he had a chance to be like, he's not going to be Maddox, right? I wasn't thinking he was going to be Maddox, but I was thinking he had a
No.
chance to be a Kyle Hendricks, somewhere in between Kyle Hendricks, where he had made his way to, and then Greg Maddox back in the day, where he's like, that guy throws 90 miles an hour, but he locates it really well. Even like a Dallas Keuchel peak, right? But it's like so
Mhm.
quickly after all that, all those arm problems, which again, you wouldn't have necessarily associated him with arm problems because he didn't throw the most hard. But yeah, one of the saddest flameouts I've seen in recent years.
So I think what's interesting about the I think it's just like a really interesting thing about the Braves because it seems like we're going through a similar thing with Bryce Elder right now.
Hmm.
So Bryce Elder was an all-star last year or was close to it. I'm gonna fact check that. I'm pretty sure he was an all-star.
Yeah,
Because
I do believe so.
okay, Bryce Elder was an all-star last year. Do you do you know where he is right now?
But where? Is he not in the bigs yet?
Triple A. He's in
He's in
Triple A. He
Triple
pitches.
A.
He's in
Oh
Triple A. He was an
man.
all-star last year with a 3.81 ERA, and now he's in Triple A.
That's so rough, dude. That's so rough. I mean, we all were saying it last year. The baseball
Like it
community,
was so
it
obvious.
was
It
so
was like
obvious he was getting lucky, but that lucky that now he's in the minors. Like he can't even throw up a 3.9. He can't even throw up a 4.2. It's that's tough, man. I think part of it is that they value that kind of talent, that ground ball talent, more than other organizations. However, it's just hard to keep fielding that at the big league level when you have guys like Spencer Strider or Max Fried or these glutton of arms they have that are like have insane potential. Elder's never going to go out there and do what he did in the first half of last season. Like he's not,
oh
that's not
no,
over a full season. It's
he's
basically
not gonna.
impossible with the repertoire that he has. So it's like, it's so difficult to keep giving him chances because it's like, it's not like someone like Strider, who even if he struggled massively this year, it's like if one thing clicks, he's about to be that guy. Elders just doesn't have the repertoire to be that guy. And unfortunately with Soroka, it seems like a similar thing, right? It's like unless he can pull something out of a hat and I don't know, hit up Tread Athletics this offseason and get to 97 miles an hour or something, it's not looking pretty good at this point.
Yeah, no, no.
100%. You want to throw your next one out?
Yes, this is a really fascinating one because this was this was a story I fell on a rabbit hole in one day because I was like one day at a stat head search because I had this what we're doing right now. I had that in mind for a video I was planning on doing, and I
Hmm.
never made it. But I was like, who's a guy who's like only posted one good season? Like
Hmm.
obviously, but like
Yeah.
but like I wanted like the most extreme example of that. And I thought I found it in a player named Chris Calabello. That name.
Oh, yeah. 2015, the legend of 2015, Chris Colabello.
But what happened was when I dove into why it happened, it's actually a very crazy story.
What's that?
So, so okay, let's just start here. Chris Carlabello went to Assumption College, which is a D2 school, right? Undrafted. So he was undrafted out of a D2 school, and he's from Massachusetts too. So it's like this is not even like not a
Right.
big
Big
thing.
hub of baseball. Yeah.
He played he played indie ball in Massachusetts and was basically the Freddie Freeman of indie ball. Like he literally just went into like in indie ball, I think the he posted OPSs of like over 1,000 like every year. Like he was hitting like 350.
Yeah.
And he did that. I want you to think about this. He played in indie ball from 2005 to 2012.
That's
And then
crazy, dude.
after 4 years of D2 college, and then he finally got the call to go to the Twins.
Their minor league system. Yeah.
Right? Okay. So yeah. He plays in the minor league system, balls out. He gets the call to go to the big leagues. He finally gets a call to go to the big leagues at age 29 after all this years of grinding. His bus breaks down on the way to the thing.
Oh my God.
He gets there. He somehow gets there, plays well in his debut, whatever. First 2 years in the big leagues, basically did nothing. You know,
Right.
he was an 80 OPS plus hitter,
As a
only hit
first
100.
baseman, not going to fly, obviously.
Yeah, only hit 214, whatever. He goes to Toronto in the offseason. He joins Toronto around, is it May, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, May 5th is the exact date. In 2015 for the Toronto Blue Jays, this 31-year-old who did nothing before this hit 321 with a 138 OPS plus with 15 homers in 101 games. He was an absolute beast, and he went off for them in the playoffs as well. He was hitting everything. But what happens? After 2015, they have the legendary playoff run, bat flip. Was he on? I don't think he was on base, but he was in that game.
Yeah.
Legendary game, bat flip. Colabello fails a drug test.
Oh, what? I didn't know
Wait,
that.
wait, but this is where it gets interesting. Colabello fails a drug test for trace amounts of, I think it was LG. It was like some sort of, it's a SARM, I think it was,
Oh,
or whatever.
wow.
But so he failed a drug test. And he was one of those guys who claimed it was like, it wasn't me, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, a bunch of other players failed a drug test for a similar thing. I think there's some notable names. I'm pretty sure one of the names was Michael Chavis.
Oh,
And
wow.
if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna Google this real quick. It was because it was like a bunch of players were getting popped for trace amounts of, it was Turinabol. My bad.
Ah.
Turinabol. It's the one that John Jones had pulsing through his body. Um, he said he claimed it was from a um from like a spike supplement or something.
Oh, damn.
And it was like very small amounts of Turinabol in his system. And like a bunch of minor league players got caught at the same time
And it
for,
like just completely derailed the upward trajectory of his career.
yes, like
Ah.
it happened to Michael Chavis too, I'm pretty sure. And also, I'm pretty sure it happened to Logan Webb.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
I'm
some
pretty
pretty,
sure
dude, Logan Webb, that's a pretty big name.
I'm pretty sure it was Logan Webb. Take that with a grain of salt,
Hmm.
but I'm pretty sure Logan Webb, it's something similar happened to him, but ignore that. But anyway, so he comes back and he appealed it before serving the suspension. And in those like in a select amount of games he played while appealing the suspension, he had a negative 36 OPS plus. Served the suspension, never made it back to the big leagues.
Crazy, dude. I mean, I remember like watching him in the playoffs and just thinking to myself, like, this is a guy who has worked so hard to get here, but it's so obvious that it's not going to last. Like, you really want it to.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember seeing a stat too where it was like his overall WAR for that season and over 101 games with how good he hit. You would think that it'd been at least decent, right? Like two, something like that, even. He was such a bad defender. He had a negative 2.2 WAR that season
Dude,
as a defender. He say his DRS that season was negative 17.
that's crazy.
And he, by the way, he only played 80 games in the field.
Yeah, it's bad. That's
Can
really
you
bad.
believe that it was so atrociously bad that it was clear that it's like, okay, this guy's gonna have to be a DH and he's gonna have to keep hit the absolute crap out of the ball. And the second that ended up happening in 2016, I remember he came out and had that horrible start. And then he didn't hit well in the minors either. So like there was no reason to bring him back up.
Yeah,
Ah, man,
because
it's tragic. It
because
sucks.
I remember I was really interested in this story, so I did some deep diving, and he was talking about how like the morale hit because he actually was innocent. Like because
Yeah.
I think now when a case like his happens now, players don't get suspended because it was a crop of like a bunch of minor leaguers who got
Right. He didn't
suspended.
collude with somebody in an effort to do steroids.
No, like I think it was like six minor leaguers in the short span of time all popped for like trace amounts of steroids, but it was because of just like there was just some whatever, just some contamination. And but now when that happens, players don't get suspended. So he literally got his career ruined. Like he was one of the craziest underdog stories, and it got ruined on a lie.
That sucks. You know what also sucks too, I'll say, is that when people think about big leaguers and they think about even like the money that they make, it's like I get they make a lot of money, especially the big guys at the upper levels of things,
Of
right?
course.
But it's like he played in the big leagues just long enough to get like a taste of it. It says on Baseball Reference he made like a little over $1 million, but that's gotta last in the rest of his life. Like he never was making enough to like do anything decent in terms of like putting money away before that. So it's like
Yeah.
that suspension literally possibly cost him like intergenerational wealth. That sucks, man. That's
Yeah, it's really bad.
actually horrible. But you know what? That kind of reminds me a little bit low key of the next player that we're going to talk about. This guy was in a completely different career circumstance, but the same level of hitting production. It reminds me of that a little bit, which is Kyle Lewis, who former rookie of the
Ah,
year back in 2020. He showed off an ability to hit that looked like it would grow with time. 11 homers over 58 games. He'd been a top prospect for a long time. Had an 801 OPS, 124 OPS plus, 1.6 WAR over the period of games he'd played. That's around 5 for a full season. And again, it was his first season where it was like it really felt like, okay, this guy, Julio Rodriguez was in the minors at the time. He was obviously highly touted. He's probably gonna have to
yes.
move to a corner, but it's like, you got a solid core there in Seattle. And he finished
Yeah.
top 20 in MVP voting, by the way. That kind of surprised me. Top 20 for MVP voting for a guy who was near a 5 WAR for a full. It really shows what 2020 was like. But
2020 is a
regardless,
goofy year.
was a goofy year, but his skill set seemed like it could possibly age well. He was a decent speed center fielder who played decent defense in center and had a decent bat. Since that season, he's played 70 games, hit 9 home runs, batted around 200 with a 60 some OPS plus. But here's the thing that's crazy.
60?
All of that's terrible, right? I mean, that's real, and it's also again, it's kind of sad when you think about the potential he seemed to have. But this is the thing that's the most sad about all of it. He had a 28 feet per second sprint speed in his rookie season.
Oh yeah.
He's down to 25.8 because of a bad knee injury that he's never really recovered from. He
Was it
literally went.
ACL?
I don't know the specifics of what exactly happened to him, but he literally went from having above average speed for a center fielder. 28 is not that great, but it's decent. It's above average for a regular big league player to having 15th percentile speed last year. Like
15.
he
That's
can't
a
even
fall off.
feel like now he's at a
That's
place where he
sad.
can only really DH. He's a typical quad A player. One thing that is cool is he hit the crap out of the ball last year in AAA. So I'm really hopeful that at some point he gets another chance, almost like a Keston Hura story. I really hope that I was another throw out there too. I hope
I love
Hura makes his
Keston
way
here.
back too. But
God.
regardless, I'm rooting for him. I really hate to see a guy come up and get like an absolute taste of it and then like nothing really past that, especially for somebody in that 2020 season where it's like he got celebrated so hard for like literally a third of a season, and that's it. That was his limelight.
Yeah, like I always feel bad for those guys because like you especially the 2020 season because people who balled out there I feel like have inflated perceptions of their value sometimes
Yeah.
because we think about it now. If last year, if Matt Chapman had, if last year was a 50 game sample, like Matt Chapman could win an MVP.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of Jose Abreu. I love Jose Abreu, right? He's been
Oh yeah, so
amazing
not yeah.
since he came over. Like he was an amazing player. He literally was like top 5 in MVP voting in his rookie season, but he had kind of made his way past that at that point, and then to win an MVP in 2020, it really did. It really did show. Jose Abreu would not have won an MVP that year. I can promise you that over the
I
course of a
yeah,
full season.
I can promise you that. Can
Freeman,
I
it was good
throw?
to see Freeman win it. I will say, although Soto
Yeah,
probably
no,
deserved it, to be honest. I,
yeah, no,
I I'm of the mindset that Soto, even though he played less games and I know that matters in the shorter sample, whatever. It was an
you know
insane season.
yeah, no, that the slash line was gaudy. But
Yes.
can I throw a name at you
Yes.
just because I was doing research? This isn't my pick, but I want to throw a name at you because I know you are a Tigers guy when you were
Mhm.
younger. Brennan Bosch.
Oh my God, Brendan Bosch, dude.
Can I give you a stat?
Everybody was so hot on Brendan Bosch back when he
Can
was like
I
a thing.
can I read this to you? Because this is one of the
Mm,
craziest things I've seen. So Brennan
good.
Bosch in his career was a 90 OPS plus hitter, and he had career 48 homers. And his career high for homers was in his second year in the league in 2016. Sorry, in 2011 he had 16 homers. My bad, with the
Yeah.
116 OPS plus. But while that's like a really good season, and that, even though that's kind of his only real full season,
Yeah.
like that was good, is that when he was a rookie in 2010, he had such a ridiculous first half. This dude in the first half of 2011, his rookie year, he batted 342 with a 990 OPS and with 12 homers. Do you want to know what he did in the second half that year for the Tigers?
No, but go ahead.
He hit 163 with
Ah,
a 458 OPS, so less than half of his first half OPS, and it only had two more homers. So that's a difference of a 167 OPS plus in the first half and a 29 in the second half. So that's talk about an insanity run. Like that's
yes,
obvious. That's a
seriously.
crazy one.
And he had
But
a decent next year, but
yes,
that's
it was
kind of
actually pretty
it.
good. It was
That's
actually
kind
pretty
of it.
good. Yeah.
I remember
The
thinking like the perception around him at the time was kind of what JD Martinez ended up turning into, where everybody was
mm,
like, we're not thinking he's gonna be all that good. He didn't have a ton of like hype coming into that season, but he was hitting the ball so hard and hitting it so consistently that it really started feeling like, okay, so this is going to be one of our guys, right? Like he has to like turn into something more than we initially thought. And then once
yeah.
that happened, it felt like it kind of ruined his perception in Detroit. Like everybody turned on him and they literally thought he was horrible the next year. And he still put
Yeah,
up a
no, he was he
116
was
OPS plus.
he was actually good the next year. It's just that's what just happens like when you have such a insano first half
Yeah.
and then it's just gone. Like that's absurd.
Seriously. And then by 2012, unfortunately, he was that in the negatives with war. And yeah, even back then when war wasn't that big of a thing, it's like that. It's still not going to fly.
No.
Not at the big league level. Yeah, that's pretty great, dude. All right. Do you want to throw out your next guy?
Yes, I want to throw out such a fascinating one is Daniel Palka.
Daniel Paca, dude. Oh my God.
Is that a name is
That
that a name that rings a
sucks.
bell?
2019. Yeah, juice ball era.
Juice Ball Merchant.
Juice ball
Actually,
merchant.
I'll say this. He had a 93 average exit velo that year. So
Oh yeah, it was still really good.
he's like this is a guy who's a dog. But at the same time, I just think it's hilarious that a player could have 27 homers as a rookie and then only be given 84 at bats the next year, which to be fair, he had a one OPS plus. And I said the word one. There's no numbers after the one. It is just the one. He had a 179
Ah,
slugging in his 30 games in 2019. That
oh
number
my
did start with the
God.
one. And then he never played in the big leagues again.
He posted what I like to call an Ichiro, right? Because he had a 372 OPS, which is the same batting average that Ichiro had in 2004.
I love that. I'm gonna use that. But in Ichiro,
That's actually, dude, that's nuts. I mean, okay, one more. We'll talk about WAR and everything. Negative 1.4 WAR in 84 plate appearances.
that's nuts. But I'm just thinking about how to me that's so crazy. Just 27 homers as a rookie, and then next year you play in
Oh,
30 games, you record 9 hits.
he
A
went from
one.
he literally went from like an above average hitter, and his first half again was like a lot better than the second half to being Chris Davis from like 2019, 2020. Like,
Yeah, no, that's
oh,
just it's so absurd. I just love that's the thing because 2016 to 2018 is the best era of random 30 homer guys.
that could
You
tell you
have
something, right?
right. No, yeah, no, it really is, but it's weird though because there's what's weird about the juice ball era is that there wasn't any crazy outlier homer seasons in the terms of steroid era record
Right,
breakers.
right, right. No,
It
it
was
was
just
just yeah, solid guys all of a sudden.
it was just everyone was hit, but 2016 to 2018 you can just name off the top of the head literally Jed Jorko, Brad
Mm-hmm.
Miller, Yasmani Tomas, Scott Schebler. Do you know who Scott Schebler is?
Yeah, only 31 home run hitter for the Cincinnati Reds in 2016.
Yeah, yeah. You're telling these are 30 homer guys.
Yeah.
Mark Trumbo, by the way, Mark Trumbo, crazy pop. Not too much. He had a 40 5 homer season.
Oh,
Like that era of baseball is so funny.
Dude,
It
I
it
remember
really
thinking,
is.
I remember thinking Nelson Cruz. Oh, he's coming up. Like he had been a player who had potential for a long time to be like a
Mhm.
big power hitter. But he around the same time at 2014 had like his first breakout with like around 40 home runs. And I remember thinking the same thing, where it's like, oh, this is gonna be another Mark Trumbo situation because Trumbo was also hitting a lot of homers at the same time. And I thought the same thing, where it's like he's gonna sink back to where he was. Well, he's one of the only guys from that era to kind of break out and then just keep doing it up until he retired. Almost got to 500 home runs. Shout out to Nelson Cruz, dude. Or in the steroids. That kind of sucked.
Yeah. Yeah,
That
but
was that was early
wait,
on.
speaking of Nelson Cruz, oh, can I say something quickly?
Yeah.
So he retired a Mariner. You see, did you see that? He
Yeah, he
signed a
signed it
one
one
day.
day. Yeah.
I don't know, like, really? I'm
You'd
sure he
think he'd
tries
be in
to.
Texas, right? A little
That's
bit
the
like what
thing,
they
like the thing is, like, whatever personal relationships he had, that's what matters most. I'm not
yeah.
telling him what to do, but I saw that and I was like, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but I
I
was
get you.
like, I was like,
his
I
his
sure,
it was fun kind of fun on a rate basis. His best seasons were low key in Minnesota, and he spent the
yeah,
most time in Texas. But
yeah,
I mean, I guess
that was
that's the
so
nature
weird.
of yeah. I guess that's the nature of someone who's kind of like a bit of a journeyman, even who had that kind of power. He averaged 37 homers over 162 games in his career, by the way. Like actually, like low
That's
key
crazy.
underrated, 130 OPS plus over the course of 19 years. But other than that, it's almost like you don't assume guys that move around a lot are going to like retire with certain teams, right? Because you don't think they have those relationships. But good for him that he
Yeah,
made those relationships in that time.
it's kind of it really. I'm like, cool. I'm like, great for you, but at the same time, I'm just like, oh, okay, it was
Another
just weird.
he's not a juice ball merchant because he literally had like 40 homers like a ton of other times. But I will
Of
say
course,
that 2019 season he had where he had 1,000 OPS and like a 639 slugging at
yeah.
like literally 38 years old. He only finished ninth in MVP voting, by the way. Like that just tells you how crazy that year
Speaking of
was.
2019,
But
the Twins had Andy Rosario go over 30 homers, but they also had Mitch Garver go over 30 homers, and that dude only played 96 games or 98 games.
dude,
What?
I remember thinking to myself, this like literally might be the most underrated catcher hitting season I've ever seen. He had a 157 OPS plus,
Dude,
995 OPS. Dude, he had a 630 slugging percentage.
what? Like, he had 30 homers in 96 games.
And he's don't get me wrong, he's been productive. He's had some injury issues, but he's been productive
He's a
since
good
he's had
hitter.
a 139 OPS plus, 134 this last year. But it's like he had literally won a silver slugger out of nowhere at 28, by the way, too. So it's not like he's like a young
Yeah.
guy reaching his peak or whatever. Like literally, again, juice ball merchant activities, but still a respectable hitter. All right, so my last one I want to throw at you, okay? This is Scooter Jeanette. He had two back-to-back good seasons. So I don't mean to disparage in any way that he was like, some kind of nobody who came out of nowhere, but he had
Oh
two
God,
back-to-back
here
good
we
seasons,
go. I
around a
know.
125 OPS plus. But the thing I'm going to say was his claim to fame, his number one thing, is his one-hit wonder was one
Literally.
game versus the Cardinals where he became the first Red ever in their history, one of the longest franchises that's ever been around, to hit 4 home runs in a single game. But that's not it, right? The 4 homers, very impressive, extremely impressive for like a guy who was playing second base at the time. He also tied their RBI record for his team in that game with 10. Then he added another hit, going 5 for 5 with 4 dingers, 10 RBI, and a team record 17 total bases.
He
In
had a
one,
single that game?
he had a single again. He went I don't know the number of guys that have went 5 for 5 with 4 home runs off the top of my head, but I can tell you it's even less than have 4 home runs. That's for sure. But to give you an idea as to how much of his production that accounted for in that season, he had 27 home runs. That literally was a little under a little under a fifth of his home runs, or around a fifth of his home runs, or a sixth of his home runs came in one game.
That's so crazy.
Absolutely crazy, dude. And then 2018, again, not the disparage guy. He was an all-star for the only time in 2018, had a big home run in the all-star game, and then proceeded to hit a 226, 245, 323 the next year with a slash, 46 OPS plus, never made it back. 29 years old, out of the big leagues. But hey, I mean, a 4 home run game, tying the record right up there with the greats who've done it. Of course, JD Martinez, Sean Green, right? The first guys you think about have done that. But
Sean Green.
dude, regardless, like I remember when that happened, I like kind of squinted my eyes and like tried to Scooter Jeanette. Because I always thought of him as like a good hitting second baseman, right? Like he was
Yeah.
never known for his offensive or his defensive capabilities, but 4 home runs in one game, it really was the most random like thing I've ever seen in terms of a single game event in baseball history.
That's funny though. I feel like of 4 homer games nowadays, I feel like the Scooter Jeanette archetype could be a guy to hit 4 homers in a game again, just because you might get some just like pitches to hit, especially if you're in a Great American Ballpark, that absolute bandbox.
Yes.
Just like sneak them out,
Dude, I
you
love that
know?
we're kind of like shouting out these random guys because Derek
So,
Dietrich.
oh, that's yeah, don't even. Because here's the thing, right? Because when it comes to one hit wonders, I think we kind of have the same thing where it's like we kind of didn't want to redo the old like Aristides Aquino and like
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
those have been covered a lot, like
Yeah.
2022 Matt Carpenter, like we've done, but I think these guys are funnier where it's the guys where they just did it, and even at the time, like it wasn't even like
Like
as hyped up.
monumental. No.
Yeah. So I have two more names. I think
Okay.
you can. I can't. I just thought of them. I'm sure you can just think of one. But I
100%.
want to throw. I'm gonna throw this out because this was kind of weird. So what was the worst team of the late 2010s?
Worst team of the late 2010s. Well, the Orioles probably, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. Baltimore Orioles. Do you know who had 31 homers for them in 2019 as a 25-year-old?
No.
Renato Nunez.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
wait,
yeah.
wait.
Like all those guys coming up behind him and stuff too. It's just
I'll say this about Renato Nunez is I feel like he kind of got the bad end of the stick. Okay, okay, I'm gonna give you my. I feel like he wasn't given as fair of a shot as he deserved because in 2019 he slapped 31 homers, right? Juice ball, whatever.
yeah.
2020 season, shortened season, 12 home runs, 118 OPS plus.
He was better than he was the
Yeah, and
previous
then
year.
and then in 2021 they just dumped him to the Tigers. And he only played in 14 games for the Tigers. Didn't hit necessarily well, but he had 4 home runs. I'm talking about Detroit. There's not really a
Yeah.
place where you're just hitting long
Oh,
balls.
it wasn't,
But
especially then. That it was not a bandbox. That's for sure.
but the thing is though, he was like a crazy quad A player. Like in like he anytime he went back down to the minors, he just raked. In
Oh,
20
dude,
Dude, in 2017, he slapped 32 homers in AAA.
that's
Like
great.
to me, it's so funny because like right now in the minor leagues, there's a player named Lucan Baker. I
Yep.
think he made some appearances for the
MLB
Cardinals
the
last year.
Show legend, dude.
He had 38 homers in the minors last year. I'm like, that's so funny to me. It's like, dude,
It
just
just doesn't necessarily translate.
it doesn't, but it makes sense why. But at the same time, it's just
Yeah, you
38 minor league homers. Like, what else do I have to
it
do?
jumps off the page. That part of it really does. Like I remember reading a book actually about players in the minor leagues, and that was one thing that they were the most frustrated about universally was it doesn't feel like it matters what I do. Like it literally is all about projectability. So even if I hit 38 home runs at the minor league level, as long as they can't see a future with me, regardless of what I do, I'm not coming up. And so it
Yeah,
feels almost aimless, right? Um,
yeah.
that kind of reminds me. Okay, I want to throw out one more guy. You come up with a couple more. You throw out your last guy in a second, but I want to throw out one more guy just because of the uniqueness of the position. Okay, closer
Yes.
happens all the time.
Okay.
Guy comes up, throws up a great
Love it.
season, right? Right,
Yes.
happens all the time. But you know what happens a little less often? A guy coming up and in his age 26 season, right? He'd only pitched in 40 games before this, throwing
Mhm.
64 games of 2.76 ERA baseball, 145 ERA plus, then coming back the next year, having an under 3 ERA again, another 142 ERA plus, saving 35 games for a playoff team, finishing top 10 in Cy Young voting. You know what I'm talking about?
I actually don't know who this
Sean
is.
Tollison.
Oh, that's
Sean,
such a funny name.
right from back that time, he literally was closer A1 for the Rangers, who again were a playoff team that year, finished top 10 in Cy Young voting. It was the same thing where it's like next year he had a 7.68 ERA in 37 games, never made it back to the big leagues. Never managed to make it back.
That's a great one. I have such a hilarious name that is I feel like one that I don't think it's not, I don't think it's really obscure because I think it's a name that comes up often when we have these talks, but it's also at the same time, I feel like his fall off was so strange, and that's Alan Craig.
Oh, dude, Alan Craig.
Dude, I remember so the 2011 World Series was one of the first World Series where like I watched, but actually like kind of understood baseball more because I was like
Mhm.
8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
I'm like, that dude was a problem. Like, no, I just remember like that was the first dude that I was able to recognize. I'm like, oh my God, this may be the best situational hitter I've ever seen. His numbers with runners in scoring position are so otherworldly in 20. So the Cardinals won the World Series in 2011, right?
Yeah.
And over the course of the next like 2 years, they were like perennial kind of contenders. What? Okay, so here's a trivia stat. So 2011, Cardinals win the World Series. 2011, they lose the World Series. So like that's kind of the peak of that era of Cardinals baseball. Um, what did Alan Craig bat with runners in scoring position over the course of those 3 years?
I'm gonna say 350.
350?
Yeah.
How about 407?
407
7?
over 3 seasons. And by the way,
Yeah,
for anyone
just
who's
yeah.
listening,
No,
for anyone who's
combined,
listening,
combined.
combined, that's about 300 games.
So it's okay. So I'll tell you this: it's 312 at bats with runners in scoring position. He hit 407.
Half a season. That's half a season's worth of at bats.
How I was like the thing is because like that was because I remember because I went on his BREF page recently. I'm like Alan Craig never got out with men on base.
No.
And I'm like, am I just gaslighting myself or is that true? And I saw that number and I was like, oh my God, this is like the greatest men on base hitter of all time.
Seriously. And but this is
Dude,
what's crazy too, is that when
absurd.
when you look at his overall numbers, it wasn't just like a guy who like, last season with who was it? It was Jesse Winker, right? It was basically only would hit
Mhm.
with guys on base. This is a guy who had a slash line routinely during that time period of around 310, 360 OBP, and
Mhm.
around a 500 slugging. Like he literally around 900 OPS, around 900 OPS, around a 140 OPS plus per season, 3 years in a row from 26 to 28 again. So it's like in that window where he should have had a gradual decline coming off of that. You wouldn't assume he would just like nuclear fall off and crater to earth after a
No, but
run like
he
that.
he literally just disappeared. Like
2014 was just 67 OPS plus. Then the next year at age 30 for Boston, 21 OPS plus in 36 games. He played as recently as 2018. That was one thing I was surprised to see. Played as recently in 2018. You know what he hit in the
yeah,
minors that year?
what did he hit in the minors that year?
293, 375, 479.
Oh, so he actually
He was
wasn't that bad in the minor
productive.
leagues.
And then, well, he had 2 seasons really bad in the minors before that. And I guess he just wanted to go out on a high note because like he retired from there
Yeah.
for the Padres. Could have seen him from the up in the big leagues for the Padres that season, but
Dude,
it
that's such
crazy.
a name. Like that really is just like it's
Here's
I
another dude. I love like the contract structures in MLB sometimes because it's like so again, same thing as Kozar. He made $3 million to post 7.2 WAR with the Cardinals, right? And all those
Mhm.
amazing hitting like numbers with men on base. He made $8 million to post a negative 1.5 WAR for the Red Sox over 65 games.
That's messed up.
Isn't that nuts? Like it's just you
That's
get you get paid for what you did in the big leagues. So you better have done a lot by the time you're about to get paid. But good for him. I mean, again, that's intergenerational wealth. He hit that cusp where he played long enough that he got those rewards. So good for him. That's what I think when people, it boils my blood a little bit when people are like, oh, this guy's so disappointing or whatever. When it's like literally, like I said, like you're getting paid for the production that you put up, not necessarily for the production you're going to put up
mhm.
in some frame. Obviously, when you're Anthony Rendon making 35 million, you have to actually be on the field once in a while. But especially for those guys in those more threshold deals, you got to cut them some slack, man. Like they gotta, they gotta eat too.
Yeah. But like I was just I just remember with Alan Craig, like I just feel like I don't even know. Like it was just he was he was the definition of just he kind of reminded me of like Victor Martinez, which is a
Hmm.
dude who just hit and it was just like he like
A
it was so
machine.
yeah, like it was
Reminds me of
just
like
yeah.
Freddie Freeman a little bit, like from the 20 like 14 to 27, 2014 like 2016 Freddie Freeman before he like added all that power. Whereas like again,
Yeah.
it's like consistent hitting production, nothing super superstar level, especially because as a first baseman, if you're not hopping 25 plus home runs at least, like you're not really going to get that level of notoriety. But I mean, it kind of tells you like why a guy can hit 13 home runs in 2013 and have 97 RBI. Like that's crazy. That
That's
that
crazy.
ratio is actually nuts.
Can
Yeah.
I throw another name at you? Because
Go ahead.
I just put it. Um, outside of the fact that okay, so Mike Adams, who was a reliever for the Padres in
Yes.
2000, he pitched for a bunch of years, but he pitched for the Padres in 2009, and he kind of had a really good run, like
Mhm.
because I mean his career ERA is 2.41, but in 2009 he pitched 37 innings for the Padres. Do you want to know what his OPS plus against was that year?
Mm.
-10.
-10?
-10. That is so like so for context, right? So minimum he's the only pitcher with 35 innings to have a negative OPS plus against, which I just saw that number and I was like,
That's
oh
actually
wow.
crazy.
But one of the craziest ones, I mean, this is a good player. I just want to throw it out there, is that like 2012, Craig Kimbrell had a 1 OPS plus against him in 62 innings. Random. But Sean Doolittle in 2018 had a 6 against him. That's a
It was another
shout
kind of
out
low key pull, but it's like he
shout out
still was really good.
shout out Sean Doolittle, man.
Seriously.
That's so crazy.
That's so crazy, dude. All right, dude. I mean, I really enjoy this. I love the kind of freewheeling nature of these conversations,
Just
especially about a topic like this, right? Where it's like a lot of this is just going to kind of come to you in the moment. I hope everybody
yeah.
enjoyed listening to this. And, I mean, obviously, comment below anybody that you think kind of fits these specifications of guys who had basically an insanity run. We'll call it that.
Basically, like I want you to comment like a guy who you're just like thinking of. I feel like
Yeah.
our segment kind of transitioned to dudes naming dudes, and I loved it. Like I thought it was awesome. Just like
100%.
because the thing is like I feel like we don't give ourselves credit, especially us. Because I know like because we spend a lot of days on like baseball reference pages and
Yeah.
like doing stat head searches. So like there's a lot of stats that we see and that like oh this player did that what.
Yeah.
So I feel like when it comes to like something like this, there's just so many weird players that I'm like, yeah, like Renato Nunez had 31 homers in 2019. That's totally normal.
100%, dude. Yeah, and it's also something too where you love shouting out guys like this too because it's like you that kind of keeps alive like their memory. Like that's kind of their only legacy is
Yeah,
those seasons. And so it feels nice to kind of like reminisce in that and
yeah, like
hopefully like I said, hopefully someone who can relate to that who remembers that run that Renato Nunez on went on in 2019 can, get something
that's
out of
my
that.
guy. Yeah, that's my
100%.
guy.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll obviously see you next week on the Making the Cut podcast. Jake from Made the Cut signing off.
See ya.